Hey everybody, 138 MMA here to break down another Week 8 Dana White's Contender Series matchup between Brandon Lewis and Daniel Marcos. Now Marcos coming in 12-0, obviously undefeated in his 12 professional MMA bouts. 6-1 on the other hand for Brandon Lewis. His only loss coming on Dana White's Contender Series against Mo Miller, I believe it was, where he was ground out and wrestled through and through, hit with a lot of ground and pound, and went to a decision. So that's the matchup. We do have a height discrepancy here, 5'7" for Marcos, 5'4" on the other hand for Lewis. That is a fairly short fighter, so 5'4", he's going to be used to battling against higher or longer reach fighters, taller fighters. So the 5'7" probably isn't a big difference from what Lewis is used to, but at the same time, there is that height advantage, and that's just going to be the way that it is. So like I said, he is undefeated. Marcos is undefeated here, and he puts away the guys that he should put away. So that's something that you like to see. You like to see him putting away the guys that are not very good, and he does that. So that's awesome. On the other hand, Brandon Lewis has obviously fought the better level of competition. He did make it to Dana White's Contender Series in the past. Lost to Mo Miller, like I said. Mo Miller is a really high-level wrestler. It makes sense. The commentary team in that matchup was all about Miller. They were saying how he's going to steamroll this guy, and I don't know that he steamrolled him the way that everybody kind of thought he would. Lewis hung in there pretty well, landed some decent leg kicks. He actually looked good with his kicking game in general in that fight, given the fact that he did still lose. He looked okay. It wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. He can fight through that adversity. He can fight through the damage. He did take a lot of ground and pound shots and did make it through the fight. So he is able to handle some punishment there. So that's kind of my initial thoughts here. I want to put a disclaimer here. Watching some of the regional fights from these guys is really hard. Now, I don't say that because it's hard to find. I say that because, especially on the Marcos side, I don't know who the camera person is for this like Sparta 300 or whatever, but they would have the fight going on and the camera like in the cage, but neither fighter is on the screen because it's looking at the mat on one side of the cage, and the fighters are off camera somehow. And there was multiple instances of this. So a lot of times you could hear it, but you had no idea what was going on. And like the quality was horrible. On the other end for Lewis, I mean, this guy's fighting in like gymnasiums with like 50 people in there. So you're seeing obviously low budget production qualities. And that's understandable. Low level MMA exists for a reason and it needs to be there. And I do appreciate it. But when you're doing your research, you gotta take it with a grain of salt. Some of the stuff is hard to make out like what's going on. With that said, these two definitely are this is the fight that I'm going to have the hardest time making a clear prediction, partially because it is hard to get good analysis of what their fights looked like, good analysis of their opponents, because a lot of the time, for example, in that Sparta 300 promotion that Marcos was fighting, a lot of the guys he was beating, they were also fighting in that promotion regularly. So they're also beating the other guys that he's beaten. So I don't know if that means that they're decent because of a decent record or if they're just beating other guys that are also not very good. So it's hard to really say what level that 12-0 is, for example. But the 6-1 here, I do know the one is to Miller, obviously, who is good competition there. That's a decent fight. His other 6 wins, he's looked decent. I even watched a few of his amateur fights. Yeah, I mean, it's amateur fights. He got a lot of arm bars there because a lot of times amateurs don't know what they're doing with their arms. Beat some guys that clearly didn't belong in a cage at all. Just signed up for an amateur fight, thought it was a good idea. And that's okay. I mean, you're going to get that. You see that on the amateur scene. But so Lewis shows some stuff in the regional scene that I would say makes me want to pick him. But then again, Marcos is 12-0 for a reason, and he's beaten a lot of guys that aren't very good, and that's not his fault. He's fighting the guys that they put in front of him. Oh, man, I have to make a pick here, because that's what this channel's about. I do make picks. Bear with me on this one. It's my least confident pick of the night. If you're thinking about doing a full fight card parlay, yeah, maybe throw it in there. But maybe you just do 4 fights this time. I'm going to take Brandon Lewis. Super not confident in it. The fact that Marcos is beating guys that are continually fighting on a promotion that doesn't really it seems very, very low level, and maybe it's not. Maybe I just caught some bad footage. I don't know. Maybe it was a camera in the crowd that was doing this and it just looked like the ring camera. I don't know. I don't have a clue. But either way, I'm going to take Brandon Lewis because it looks like he's fought the better level competition and hung in there, whether he won or lost. In the case of Mo Miller, obviously lost, but he hung in there okay. Mo Miller has gone on to be, 7-2 now, I believe. So the guy's still doing it all right. But yeah, like I said, if maybe you have some better knowledge on this, maybe you've seen some of these guys fight live, and if so, let me know, because in the comments I would love to get back to you and have that back and forth with you. If you've seen them fight live and have a better perspective on it, I would love to hear it, especially on the Marcos side. But yeah, either way, let me know what you think. I'm taking Lewis, but super, super, super not confident in this one. And yeah, you got to make a pick, though. That's what the channel's about. So Lewis it is for me. Hopefully I'll see you guys in the next video.